Good afternoon. My name is Sean Williford. I work for EMC, and I am here to talk to you about a very long-winded title, leveraging plugins beyond just drivers to enable automation for your OpenStack cloud. Not my title. I am a drop-in replacement with the same interface and the same original value for the original presenter of this talk. What I am actually really talking about is one little thread of the engagement that EMC has been making with the open source communities over the last several years. So we're involved with OpenStack, that's why we're here. This is our 4th summit, and we have been trying to make contributions above and beyond simple storage and storage components. So we have, of course, Cloud Foundry and OpenNFV. We came up with the sponsorship for at the last summit, or around the time of the last summit in Vancouver. But what we want to talk about today is really things that we've been working on with other distribution providers in the OpenStack space. So we have had, for the last few months, work in progress with our friends at Mirantis and Red Hat and Canonical, basically coming up with reference architectures using EMC products, particularly storage platforms, with their distributions of OpenStack. So we've published a few white papers, we've done a lot of great testing together, and it's been good, but we really haven't been giving our clients, our sort of joint customers, the full advantage of the tooling that comes from, say, Mirantis or, say, Canonical in terms of how they're managing and deploying OpenStack in a fairly, simplified fashion. Now, if you're rolling your own distribution of OpenStack, you're already building your own tooling. So the answer is, if you're going to use EMC products, take those drivers into account. That's the obvious thing that you're already doing. If you're coming at it from a fuel perspective, you're going to say, well, I don't see this in fuel. I see Ceph in fuel, and that's super easy, so I'll just set that up. And what we've been trying to do recently through the EMC code team is making it just as easy to use some alternatives from EMC. So we have drivers for everything, but drivers don't really get us to where we want to be in the distribution context. So what we've been looking at is what are particular distributions using in terms of their tool set for actually managing the deployment of OpenStack and the configuration. So taking just one as an example, Mirantis has their wonderful Fuel product. We've been doing plugin development around Fuel. We've got 3 plugins available today, a couple for SCALEIO and one for VNX. And the basic idea is looking at all of the different types of variations that customers might be trying to associate OpenStack with perhaps a storage deployment of SCALEIO which already exists, or a storage deployment where we want to actually deploy SCALEIO net new alongside the OpenStack distribution coming from Mirantis. So we have 2 rather curiously named plugins. There's the SCALEIO plugin, which basically deploys SCALEIO alongside of the other OpenStack components in whatever node set that you're targeting with Mirantis Fuel. If you have, in a lab environment, already set up SCALEIO and you want to point Mirantis Fuel sort of driven OpenStack toward that, we have a different plugin called SCALEIO CINDER because it's really only looking at the sort of components we need to deploy in the OpenStack compute nodes and the OpenStack control plane to enable it to talk to that other software-defined network. If you want to know where you could get SCALEIO itself to play around with, you never have to talk to an EMC rep to get that. As of the spring, we made the software available for SCALEIO on emc.com in a free and frictionless manner. That's marketing speak for you can download it, you can run it for as long as you want to, you can run it at any scale. We're just not going to support it. So if you want support for that in production, and who wouldn't, you would have to actually talk to an EMC sales guy. But at any rate, so running through SCALEIO CINDER. This is basically the simpler plugin. It kind of assumes that we already have SCALEIO running out there in the data center somewhere. We just need to let OpenStack know how to talk to that. So what it's doing is basically adding some roles and software deployment for SCALEIO, particularly the SDC, which is the SCALEIO data client, that needs to be running on the control plane nodes. It needs to be running on the compute nodes in order to allow those nodes to be able to interact with the SCALEIO system, either from a control path or a data path perspective. So this is something that is available today, and you're happy to go ahead and check that out. If we look at installing everything in one go, we can go ahead and do that with a slightly different plugin, creatively named this is still SCALEIO CINDER, and this is kind of a blowout of how we might go ahead and do this. All of these things are available from github.com on emc.code. It's also in the OpenStack repo. And we have good documentation around how you would install and provision this. I've done it myself. It's actually super simple. If you want to deploy the whole ball of wax onto a physical environment, and including SCALEIO net new, you can do that with a slightly different plugin called SCALEIO. This is going to automate the deployment of all the components of SCALEIO, so not just the SDC, the data components, but also the SDS, which is the storage service component, and the SDM, which is our metadata manager. All of those components basically can get laid into the reference architecture that Mirantis would recommend for high availability. So we would have SCALEIO, the metadata manager running on the controller cluster for CINDER, and then we would have potentially a set of nodes which would essentially be dedicated storage nodes. SCALEIO does support actually hyperconverging storage and compute. This is not what we're doing necessarily in this edition, but we could come up with a variant plugin to actually support that type of deployment as well. And then, as in the other plugin scenario, we would be deploying the SDC on the compute nodes and enabling those compute hosts, and their virtual machines to mount that storage. So it's wonderful. We did have demos set up for this. Unfortunately, they're rather ludicrously hosted behind a VPN, and that hasn't been so happy this week, so take my word for it. We've got some video demos we're going to be putting up as well, but I think that the proof will be in the pudding. If you're not using Mirantis, you're using something like the OpenStack distribution from Canonical. We are also building charms, so we have charms for all of the storage platforms that we're supporting right now on Ubuntu. We have charms for VNX, which has a fairly simple configuration interface to just point, in this case, your CINDER backend to the configuration options for the VNX or VNXs that you happen to have in the environment. And we also can do this, of course, with other arrays like our all-flash array or XTREMIO. Again, we're trying to make this as easy as possible so that you're not futzing around with individual configuration options in cinder.conf after you've already had this wonderful automated deployment with JUJU and MAS. All of these things are really available today, and it's work in progress. So the EMC Code Initiative is basically a dedicated development team we have building open source integrations and open source projects. We've got an interesting repo up at emccode.github.io if you haven't taken a look at that as well. To find the charms and the fuel plugins today, again, you can look at Git. Right now, we're working with Mirantis to get them to certify those and put them actually kind of in their official fuel store. You won't find them there yet, but that is work in progress, I've been assured. And then we do have charms already up in the charm store from Canonical. You can search for XTREMIO or VNX and find those. So that was very quickly, because I'm from New York, I dress all in black, and I talk fast. Are there any questions? I'm so happy you're here. This is Thursday afternoon. You must really be interested. Well, this is fantastic. So thanks very much, and look for more from EMC Code over the next few